See, in the midst of a fiery trial, you can't afford to only be thinking about how painful it is. No, you got to set your mind on the reward of the blessing in reference to the painful thing. But you know the scripture because you've been taught right. Proverbs 18:21. Death and life are in the power of the what? Tongue. But because you have no discipline. When I look at Romans, the 8th chapter, when the Apostle Paul writes to the church at Rome, and if you know anything about Paul, Paul suffered many things. I said Paul suffered many things. He went through even to the point to where Paul had to tell some skeptics or some critics that when it came to his apostleship, Paul had to let folk know, look, I bear in my body the marks of an apostle. In other words, Paul had to straighten folk and let folk know that he wasn't no weak Christian. He wasn't no, oh Lord have mercy. Paul had to serve notice on some folk and let them know that he had been through some things. But in all you see Paul going through, we don't see Paul being a complainer. We see Paul as more than a conqueror. We see a man of God that at some times in his life, like it or not, Paul spent more time in jail than he did outside of the jailhouse. Not because he committed a crime, but because Paul was going to do what thus saith the Lord, and he had enemies because he loved God. Come on, enemies that didn't mind persecuting him, even to the point of locking him in prison, knowing he did nothing to deserve it. But Paul, being the warrior that he was, never complained about being in jail. Paul went so far as to tell people that I am the prisoner of the Lord. In other words, Paul recognized, though I'm locked up in chains, this is the will of God for my life. And while locked up, Paul was known for winning souls to Christ. Oh God, somebody better grab that. I said going through it, but in Paul's distress, he was yet a soul winner for God because Paul deemed himself as being more than a conqueror. And so that's what I want to teach us this morning, that if we are real Christians, then the scripture says, again, notice it, in the 37th verse, Paul said, yet in all these things, notice what he said, we are. Somebody shout, we are. Somebody shout, we are. Now the we is the brethren are Christians. Paul tells Christians that we are more than conquerors. Not just a conqueror, but we are more than conquerors. If you are more than a conqueror, you are a victorious fighter. Listen, because some folk fight, but they don't fight to win. But if you more than a conqueror through him who loved you, that makes you not just an ordinary fighter, not just a mediocre fighter, but it calls you or labels you a victorious fighter. I fight knowing that the battle is already won through my Lord. Come on, somebody. You have in this church some real fighters. I said in this church, we oh God, I can brag on some of you. I know you to be a victorious fighter. I saw what you went through. I saw things stand in your way only to be knocked back 10 spaces because you knew who you were in God. And so I can say, not about all, but I can say about a whole lot of folk that I pastor. Oh yeah, she more than a conqueror. Oh, my brother is a victorious fighter. Minister so-and-so, better believe. You better know she more than a conqueror. And that's a good feeling as a pastor, to know that I pastor folk who are more than conquerors. You know, I also have to admit that I pastor folk who are the exact opposite. Now, the antonym of being more than a conqueror or being a victorious fighter is, number one, you don't want to be these things, is to be a coward. To be a coward. Nobody likes to be called a coward. But for some of us, it fits this morning. Oh, God. So you can't get mad because I didn't call your name. I said it fit. Now listen. But that's what fit. And we know what fits and what don't fit. Now, when it comes to people being cowards, though some of us talk a good game, that name, it fits you during times of trouble or difficulty. When you've been told no, but God has said yes, you don't follow through with a yes attitude. You're a coward. You're a coward. It also has to do with a person who is a pushover. And like it or not, cowards and pushovers are easily defeated. They may talk like they're going to fight. They may talk like they're going to believe. They may talk like they're going to hang in there. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's just a bunch of talk. And sometimes demons know when some of us are just talking. We can sing it and we can preach it. Tell your neighbor, this is going to be one of the best years of my life. Tell your neighbor, better is here, better is coming. Some of us say it, but it's just talk. And I've been charged as the pastor, as the shepherd, as the watcher, to preach a word that will inspire people to change. Show them in the word that's not what I called them to be. Show them in the word what they are so they can get their act together, so they don't miss what it is that I have for them. Go out there. Don't just proclaim the word, but even dare to rebuke some for being pushovers. The one thing we need in order to be more than conquerors or to be victorious fighters, the one thing we need to be is people who are disciplined. You can't be more than a conqueror or a victorious fighter if you are not disciplined. It takes a disciplined person to be more than a conqueror. Y'all stay with me. We need to be disciplined in our thinking, in our talking, and in our doing. We need to be disciplined in those areas. We need to be disciplined when it comes to how we think. We need to be disciplined when it comes to how we talk. And we need to be disciplined when it comes to what we do and what we don't do. Pastor, why is that important? Well, it's important because Peter said in reference to thinking, in 1 Peter 4:12, Peter said, think it not strange concerning the fiery trial which is to try you, as though some strange thing has happened to you. See, if you're going through fiery trials, which suggests something very painful, if you're not going to think it strange, you have to be disciplined to what you allow to enter your mind. You have to be disciplined when it comes to what you're going to think on versus what you will not think about. See, in the midst of a fiery trial, you can't afford to only be thinking about how painful it is. No, you got to set your mind on the reward of the blessing in reference to the painful thing. But that takes something. And the reason some of us don't think the way we need to is because we ain't disciplined. We not only allow anything to enter our mind, but we meditate on the wrong things. If God say you bless, yet your finances or your checking account does not prove it on paper, it's going to take a disciplined person to set their mind on money coming. Finances coming from somewhere. Breakthrough here. Favor is already upon me. You got to set your mind. You know, reading some folk, not some of us, our mind is just idle. Idle because we never get control of our thinking. We're not disciplined. God says you the head, but you think like the tail. And it all has to do with discipline. Oh, God. Can I be honest? There are blessings that some of us want, but we ain't showed God that we discipline to have it. And sometimes you can talk again a great talk, but when it comes to it, sometimes we look at ourselves and we lack discipline. Some of us got a strategy. We got a plan. But because of lack of discipline, we very rarely follow through on the plan. God gave me a plan to be debt free. Mm-hmm. You know that includes you not buying things you don't need. You know that includes you skipping something that say sale to get to where he wants you to be, which is to experience debt freedom. See, some of us got a good plan, but we lack discipline. This is a hard word. Some of you could already have reached your weight goal, but you lack discipline. When it comes to how we talk, some of us lack discipline. You don't watch what you say out your mouth, but you know the scripture because you've been taught right. Proverbs 18:21, death and life are in the power of the what? Tongue. But because you have no discipline, you speak death over yourself consistently. It takes discipline to be experiencing one thing, but to speak out of your mouth what you gonna see. To actually speak with power and decree things that you do see as being better or improved. That's gonna take discipline when you staring at a problem that don't want to budge, but out of your discipline